In the beginning, humanity teetered on the edge of despair. The first family, Adam and Eve, had lost paradise, exiled from Eden's glory. Then came the unthinkable. Cain murdered his brother Abel, shattering the fragile bonds of brotherhood and etching a wound into the soul of mankind. But amid this darkness, a spark of hope emerged. God granted Eve another son, named Seth, meaning appointed. As Genesis 4:25 records, God has granted me another child in place of Abel, since Cain killed him. This birth was no ordinary event. It marked the dawn of renewal, a divine intervention in humanity's fractured story. Seth's arrival transformed grief into grace. For Adam and Eve, who once walked with God in Eden's gardens, the pain of exile and loss was overwhelming. Yet Seth's cry pierced the silence like a promise fulfilled. He became the bridge between a sin-scarred past and a hopeful future, embodying God's unwavering commitment to redemption. In a simple dwelling heavy with memories of paradise lost, this child signaled that humanity was not forsaken. The question echoes through time. Could one fragile life mend the broken threads of history? To understand Seth's significance, we must revisit the tragic backdrop of early human existence. Eden, radiant with divine presence, was sealed off by cherubim and a flaming sword after Adam and Eve's disobedience, as described in Genesis 3:24. The ground itself was cursed, forcing mankind to toil in sweat and sorrow for sustenance. Genesis 3:19 declares, "By the sweat of your brow you will eat your food until you return to the ground." Every plowed field, every thorn-infested harvest reminded them of their fall from grace. Then came Abel's murder, the first act of human violence, not on a distant battlefield, but in a quiet field where brother turned against brother. Genesis 4:8 recounts how Cain, driven by jealousy over rejected offerings, slew Abel. The Lord confronted Cain. "Your brother's blood cries out to me from the ground." Genesis 4:10. This fratricide wasn't just personal tragedy. It symbolized sin's corrosive spread, weaving death into life's fabric. Adam and Eve's grief deepened, their daily labors now a penance amid exile's shadows. Into this world of brokenness, Seth was born, not into abundance, but onto soil watered by tears. Raised in awareness of Eden's lost perfection and sin's shadow, he learned from his parents' lived memories. Around flickering fires, Adam described walking with God in the garden's cool evenings, warning of the serpent's deceit. Seth's childhood forged resilience, turning toil into worship and hardship into faith. Unlike his brother's violent path, Seth embodied quiet devotion, an archetype of righteousness in a darkening world. The biblical narrative contrasts two paths emerging from Adam's sons: Cain's line of rebellion and Seth's line of faith. Cain, marked and banished east of Eden, Genesis 4:16, built cities and fathered a lineage of cultural innovators. His descendants forged bronze and iron tools, created musical instruments, and established urban centers, Genesis 4:17-22. Yet this progress masked spiritual decay, pride, violence, and polygamy, exemplified by Lamech's boast. If Cain is avenged 7 times, then Lamech 77 times, Genesis 4:23-24. Their achievements advanced technology and economy, but at the cost of divine estrangement, embodying hostility to God's law. In stark opposition, Seth's line pursued spiritual simplicity over material splendor. No grand cities or weapons, instead altars of devotion and communal worship. With the birth of Seth's son Enoch, people began to call on the name of the Lord, Genesis 4:26, marking the dawn of public faith as a covenant identity. This shift wasn't cultural evolution alone. It was theology in action, preserving devotion amid corruption. Seth's household became a sanctuary, teaching children Eden's stories and obedience's value, countering Cain's pride with humility. This duality reflects broader biblical themes: two humanities, one on the broad road to destruction, the other on the narrow path to life, as Jesus later echoed in Matthew 7:13-14. Cain's path led to societal advancement but moral decline, influencing early human culture with self-reliant ambition. Seth's, fragile yet faithful, safeguarded God's promise, impacting global spiritual history by maintaining a remnant devoted to the Creator. Seth's legacy unfolded through generations, each deepening faith's evolution, from Enoch's public worship to descendants like Cain, Mahalalel, and Jared. The line formed an unbroken chain of devotion. Enoch, seventh from Adam, exemplified its pinnacle. Enoch walked faithfully with God. Then he was no more, because God took him away. Genesis 5:24. This translation, without death, foreshadowed resurrection, a prophetic glimpse amid growing wickedness. Jude 14-15 recalls Enoch's warnings against ungodliness, highlighting the line's spiritual depth. The lineage culminated in Noah, born into a world where every inclination of the thoughts of the human heart was only evil all the time. Genesis 6:5. Yet Noah found favor with God. Genesis 6:8. Building the ark to preserve life through the flood, a direct fruit of Seth's faithfulness. This event reshaped humanity, restarting civilization post-deluge around 2348 BC by some biblical chronologies, influencing ancient Near Eastern societies with themes of judgment and renewal echoed in flood myths worldwide. Economically, Seth's line emphasized agrarian simplicity, contrasting Cain's urban and metallurgical innovations. Politically, it lacked empires, but fostered communal worship, laying groundwork for covenant communities like Israel. Technologically, while Cain's advanced tools and music, Seth's focused on spiritual continuity, preserving oral traditions that shaped religious practices across millennia. The global impact of Seth's lineage is profound, threading through salvation history to the Messiah. Luke 3:38 traces Jesus back to the son of Seth, the son of Adam, the son of God. Seth's appointment fulfilled the Protoevangelium of Genesis 3:15, promising enmity between the serpent's seed and the woman's, ultimately crushed by Christ. This lineage influenced Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, with billions drawing from its redemptive narrative. Regionally, in the ancient Near East, it contrasted Mesopotamian city-states' polytheism with monotheistic devotion, seeding ethical monotheism's spread. Seth's story reshaped cultural views of legacy, emphasizing spiritual over material inheritance. His quiet obedience outlasted empires, inspiring movements from early church fathers to modern theology, reminding us that faithfulness endures beyond visible achievements. As we reflect on Seth's life, spanning 12 years until his death, Genesis 5:8, we see a man whose humility altered destiny. In a world of violence and pride, he preserved hope, turning sorrow into eternal purpose. What lessons does this hold for us? In our fractured times, Seth challenges us to choose faith over ambition, to nurture devotion amid chaos. His legacy whispers that no darkness is absolute, God's promises endure. From Eden's fall to Calvary's triumph, Seth's thread weaves a story of redemption, one that invites us to join, ensuring hope's flame never fades.